Have you ever caught yourself wondering why you just don't visit people the way you used to? It's not that you've lost your kindness or become some kind of recluse. Something deeper shifts over time, a combination of realizing your own priorities, protecting your well-being, and acknowledging that your energy isn't endless. These changes don't mean you've stopped caring. They only show that your perspective on life has evolved. What once felt so necessary, dropping by anyone and everyone's home, filling the calendar with social events, can start to feel more like a chore than a true pleasure as life unfolds. Many people begin noticing they'd rather invest their time with those who bring genuine warmth and respect. The idea of constant gatherings and superficial chit-chat becomes less compelling. Feeling obliged to visit can turn into a source of stress instead of a cause for excitement. Some might call it becoming unsocial, but I'd call it discovering your own sense of peace. And with that newfound peace comes the clear understanding that you're no longer compelled to be everywhere at once or please everyone around you. This shift isn't about shutting out the world or shying away from meaningful relationships. It's the exact opposite. You're choosing how, where, and with whom you spend your time. It's about honoring yourself and respecting that life doesn't last forever. So every moment is valuable. As you recognize that you can't be all things to all people, you focus on quality connections over quantity. You begin to see that your life carries a level of richness and contentment when you create space for what truly resonates with you. What follows are 8 powerful reasons why you might find yourself visiting less often. Each reason reveals something new about how priorities transform as the years pass. By the end, you'll see that it's perfectly normal, perhaps even beneficial, to ease out of those endless rounds of visits and preserve your energy for what truly counts. You'll also discover that life can feel freer, more peaceful, and more purposeful when you let go of the belief that you must always be on the go. Whether you relate to just one or all 8, these insights may help you feel more confident in honoring your own needs and boundaries. But that's not the whole story. There's more depth to each reason than meets the eye. Let's explore them one by one. Growing older, you start to notice that energy isn't as boundless as it once seemed. Where you used to run from one event to the next, chat into the late hours, and still have the stamina for a weekend road trip. Now you might need a more deliberate approach to your schedule. It's not about becoming lazy or withdrawing from life. It's about respecting the limits your body and mind impose. There is real value in recognizing that energy, both emotional and physical, must be conserved for the moments that count. In younger years, saying yes to every invitation felt effortless. Going out multiple nights a week was exciting. Visiting friends all across town was a routine part of life. Those days shaped who you are. But as time passed, you likely became more selective. Why expend precious energy on empty small talk when you could channel your focus into interactions that truly matter? Suddenly, you find yourself weighing the cost of each potential visit. Is it worth the time? Will it nourish or drain you? Some people feel guilty about declining invitations because they equate presence with caring. Yet there's a monumental difference between caring for someone and constantly showing up for social engagements. You can love someone dearly without needing to occupy their couch every weekend. Genuine friendships and family bonds often thrive on mutual understanding that life is busy, bodies tire, and rest is essential. The real measure of connection isn't how frequently you meet, but how sincerely you connect when you do. A wise friend once said, if I'm going to spend an evening getting dressed, driving across town, and investing my whole night in conversation, I want it to be meaningful. That outlook doesn't arise from self-importance. It arises from self-awareness. You begin to see the value of each evening and each weekend. You begin to cherish stillness more than the friction of an overly full schedule. Even the simplest tasks, like preparing a small gift, planning your route, making sure you're not imposing on anyone's routines. These things take mental space. As you grow older, it becomes clear that your capacity for extra effort feels more limited. You're more attuned to how each choice affects your well-being. And you accept that it's okay not to show up everywhere. You realize your time is a priceless resource. Once it's spent, you can't get it back. But that wasn't the whole story, because recognizing limited energy is just the tip of the iceberg. There's also the matter of how your personal priorities evolve, which leads us to the next reason. It's common to reach a stage in life where certain things you once valued become less of a focal point. Perhaps you used to think missing a party might mean missing out on the best weekend of your life. Or you always felt obligated to attend every family gathering, no matter how draining, because that's what you're supposed to do. Over time, you might realize these obligations were tied to a desire for acceptance, fear of missing out, or simply habit. As the years progress, a shift happens. You start prioritizing tranquility, purpose, or personal growth over superficial social obligations. Maybe you find you're drawn to activities like gardening, painting, or reading quietly by the window. Those moments foster a sense of inner peace that a noisy crowd rarely offers. Alternatively, you might want to invest more deeply in just a handful of beloved relationships, rather than scattering your time across countless acquaintances. There's a strange freedom in acknowledging that you don't have to be everywhere at once. Instead of bouncing from place to place, you can devote those hours to pursuits that genuinely enrich you. The quest for external validation, like being seen at certain events or feeling the need to maintain a jam-packed social calendar, often gives way to a quieter contentment found in solitude or smaller gatherings. It might shock your younger self if you traveled back in time, but the older version of you embraces it. Society might try to guilt trip you into believing that to be friendly is to always be available. But consider this: being friendly and kind doesn't mean you must open your schedule to everyone. It simply means treating others with warmth when you do interact. Regular life events, health checkups, financial planning, family obligations take on a sharper importance as you age. So do quiet mornings and reflective nights when you can collect your thoughts or simply rest your body. For many people, the desire to deepen spiritual practices, learn new skills, or focus on physical well-being becomes more pressing. The once mandatory weekly visits to neighbors or extended relatives can fade into a once-a-month scenario, and that's perfectly acceptable. If these visits no longer align with your renewed focus, there's no reason to force them out of some outdated sense of duty. But there's an even more compelling reason behind why those frequent visits dwindle. Deep down, many of us start craving authenticity and depth over casual conversation. And that's where the next reason is revealed. When you're young, having a wide circle can feel invigorating. There's a thrill in knowing dozens of people, waving hello to countless faces, and attending a different get-together every weekend. Over time, however, you might notice those interactions don't always satisfy the more profound aspects of human connection. You can have 100 people in your phone contacts, but still experience a certain hollowness when you realize few of them really know you. Genuine connection requires more than swapping pleasantries or catching up on everyday gossip. It involves feeling understood, sharing vulnerable conversations, and building trust that transcends how frequently you see each other. The older you get, the less patience you might have for superficial banter. You'd rather spend 2 hours in deep conversation with a single close friend than 4 hours making small talk with a room full of acquaintances. There's something enlightening in discovering that not everyone you once labeled a friend truly has your best interests at heart. Perhaps they were only there for the parties, the laughs, and the good times. The moment life demanded more seriousness or you faced personal hardships, they faded away. Such experiences often prompt a person to whittle down their social circle to those who genuinely care. Visiting people less often becomes a natural extension of wanting better quality interaction. Instead of dropping in on neighbors or distant relatives out of habit, you allocate that energy for phone calls or visits with someone who actually lifts your spirit. You learn to spot the difference between acquaintances who only share surface level chatter and those who stand by you when challenges arise. One of the hidden benefits of fewer, deeper connections is the relief of not having to put on a show. When you're truly close to someone, there's no need for constant entertainment or forced cheer. You can sit comfortably with a friend, share silence without awkwardness, or laugh spontaneously at an old memory. Time spent with such people often recharges you instead of draining you. But what happens when you still find yourself pulled into gatherings that offer little genuine depth, yet carry a heavy toll on your peace of mind? Let's look at the next compelling reason why you might reduce visits: the desire to avoid negativity and drama. As life unfolds, patterns become more obvious. Certain gatherings or individuals consistently bring drama, gossip, or negative energy. It might be that cousin who always complains about everyone's life choices, or that old friend who tries to provoke arguments for the thrill of it. In the past, you might have brushed these incidents aside. You tolerated rude remarks, or heated debates because you felt obligated to show up or keep the peace. Eventually, it dawns on you the emotional hangover from a night of conflict isn't worth it. You have the right to guard your mental well-being, and the surest way to protect that well-being is by limiting exposure to draining environments. This doesn't mean you cut off everyone who's ever said a crossword, but it does mean choosing carefully whether you want to endure an evening of tension for the sake of maintaining appearances. If you've ever walked away from a visit feeling exhausted rather than uplifted, you understand the emotional price paid for forced interactions. A meal meant for laughter can turn into a litany of complaints about everything under the sun, or a simple conversation might devolve into personal jabs and unresolved old grudges. Life is complicated enough without adding these draining episodes to your plate. Stepping back from frequent visits is often less about being cold and more about being protective of your peace. You'd rather invest in meaningful chats or restful solitude than navigate another night of simmering resentments and whispered gossip. Once the realization clicks that you don't owe everyone your presence, an enormous weight lifts off your shoulders. It's a revelation that sparks genuine relief. Some worry they'll come across as rude if they stop attending these functions. In reality, the boundary you set can serve as a powerful statement that you value constructive, respectful interactions. Those who continue stirring drama might eventually learn they can't keep an audience with you. You've essentially exposed the shocking truth that you won't be part of their negativity cycle anymore. But that's not where the story ends. There's another side to this coin. As you become more selective about your visits, you may also discover just how comforting home can be. And that's our next reason. There's a special type of serenity that comes from waking up in your own bed, strolling into your kitchen for a cup of tea or coffee, and spending the day in a space meticulously shaped around your preferences. Over the years, you cultivate a home that feels like a sanctuary. It's more than walls and furniture. It's a safe haven where you can think deeply and move at your own pace. Some people find the predictability of home life especially soothing. There are no unfamiliar chairs that strain your back, no chaotic noises that interrupt your thoughts. You know exactly where everything is: your medications, your reading glasses, your favorite sweater. At home, there's no pressure to make conversation when you don't feel like talking, and you can enjoy complete silence without anyone finding it odd. Visiting other people's spaces, meanwhile, can be wonderful under the right circumstances, but it also involves adapting to their schedules, tastes, and environments. Maybe they keep the house a bit too warm or too cold for your liking. Perhaps there's a cat you're allergic to, or the atmosphere is generally hectic because of kids or visitors coming and going. Even when the host is gracious, being in someone else's domain takes a different sort of energy than simply existing in your own. It's no wonder that as you get older, the peace and convenience of home become more alluring. Hosting others in your own space can be a middle ground, allowing you to enjoy company without sacrificing the comfort you hold dear. People who truly care about you won't mind traveling to your place, especially if they understand how much it helps you conserve energy and reduce stress. Still, the love for home isn't solely about comfort. Another side of the story involves rethinking what social shoulds mean and realizing that living authentically sometimes means not conforming to others' expectations. That's where the next reason comes into play. Society has plenty of unwritten rules. You should visit grandparents every week. You should drop in on your colleague's housewarming party. You should show up at every family reunion. But who's dictating these shoulds, and how many of them truly resonate with your genuine desires? Over time, it becomes clear that many of these obligations exist out of habit rather than heartfelt intention. Think of all the times you said yes to gatherings, even though you wanted to stay home and rest. Maybe you were fearful of offending someone by declining, or you assumed it was your duty to attend every holiday function. Age, however, often brings a sense of clarity. You realize there's no universal scoreboard that measures how sociable you are based on the number of dinners you attend. This realization can be liberating. It's the moment you stop viewing absence as disrespect and start seeing it as self-care. You're no longer a prisoner to the fear that not showing up makes you a bad friend or relative. Instead, you learn that authenticity, showing up when it's meaningful and not when you're drained, can be a sign of greater respect. You respect the host enough to only appear when your heart is in it, rather than arriving with a forced smile and a resentful spirit. That's not to say you never visit. Instead, you visit deliberately. You make conscious choices about which invitations align with your well-being. You might have discovered that half the events you once attended out of obligation offered little real value to your life. By freeing yourself from these shoulds, you open the door to more fulfilling moments when you do decide to interact with others. People who don't understand this transformation might label you as distant or standoffish. Let them. You're no longer in the business of bending yourself to meet expectations that don't fit your evolving sense of self. Ironically, standing firm can sometimes encourage others to question whether they've also been attending events out of a sense of duty rather than genuine desire. You might inspire someone else to find their freedom from the tyranny of should. But there's another piece of this puzzle. Having fewer social obligations can illuminate just how beneficial it is to focus on quality relationships rather than racking up an impressive social count. Leading us to the next reason. We often hear that humans are social creatures. Yet, it's easy to mistake quantity of interactions for quality of connections. Over the course of life, you might look back and see a series of acquaintances who drifted in and out, relationships that revolved around fleeting common interests, or even groups you stayed part of just to avoid feeling left out. Once the novelty wore off, you realize those connections didn't have much staying power. Choosing to visit fewer people can be an intentional shift toward curating deeper bonds. Instead of splitting your time among dozens of faces, you focus on the handful who truly matter. These are individuals with whom you can share joys and sorrows, who celebrate your wins and support you in your darkest times. The conversation goes beyond "how's the weather?" and dives into real-life experiences, dreams, and even fears. It might sound dramatic to say you've exposed the truth about superficial relationships, but in a sense, you have. When you reduce your visits, you see who checks in on you in return. Some folks only kept the friendship going because you were the one who constantly reached out. Others might fade away without a word when you step back. It's a revealing process that can be bittersweet, but ultimately clarifying. The beauty of fewer but richer relationships is that they're far more rewarding. There's less anxiety about small talk or filling empty space with chatter. The friends and family you choose to keep close understand the rhythms of your life. They know you might not drop by their house at random, but they trust that your bond remains strong regardless of physical distance. In fact, these relationships often grow stronger when freed from the constant need for presence. It becomes about genuine support and mutual respect, not social obligations or appearances. You keep each other in your thoughts, reach out when it truly matters, and enjoy each other's company when you decide to come together. There's a profound sense of ease in connecting with someone who respects that life can be full and sometimes unpredictable without demanding your constant attendance. But focusing on quality doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's also tied to changing priorities and perspectives, which leads you to stand more confidently in your life choices. There's one more reason that ties everything together: discovering your own independence and trusting yourself. There comes a point in life where you feel a sense of self-assurance that wasn't there in your youth. Maybe you've weathered financial troubles, health scares, or heartbreaking losses. These experiences often reshape your worldview. You realize you can navigate storms on your own, and your identity doesn't revolve around how many people you can gather in a room. As your independence grows, you become less reliant on external validation. You trust your instincts. If you don't feel up to a social event, you don't force yourself to attend out of fear of judgment. If you see an opportunity to spend a quiet evening reading a good book, you take it without worrying whether people will think you're dull. Self-trust means you no longer seek permission to live life on your own terms. This independence can shock those who remember you as the perpetual people pleaser. Suddenly, you're not bending over backward to accommodate the whims of everyone around you. You're comfortable saying no or setting boundaries. While some may interpret it as self-centered, the truth is that this sort of autonomy often allows you to show up more authentically when you do choose to visit. Another benefit of self-trust is recognizing that you can connect with others without physically being in their living room every week. Your belief in the bond you share extends beyond geography. With technology, you can talk, send messages, or even video chat, preserving that connection in a way that feels comfortable and sustainable. You place faith in your relationships rather than in the idea that constant togetherness is required. All of these reasons, finite energy, evolving priorities, deeper connections, avoiding drama, comfort at home, freedom from shoulds, choosing quality, and trusting yourself, interlace to create a tapestry that explains why visits naturally decrease over time. None of these reasons stem from malice or antisocial tendencies. Rather, they reflect a journey toward living more intentionally and cherishing what truly matters. When someone asks, "Why don't you come around as often?" It's easy to shrug and say you're busy, but the truth is far richer. Life changes shape as we grow older. The once infinite reservoir of energy now has boundaries. The longing to keep every person happy fades away, replaced by a desire to savor each moment in genuine peace. Priorities shift, leading you to seek authentic connections over empty pleasantries. Negativity becomes harder to tolerate, and home transforms into a sanctuary that nurtures your body, mind, and spirit. Choosing to visit people less often might raise eyebrows, but at its core, it's about respecting yourself and recognizing that your presence should be intentional. You're not obligated to smile through someone else's drama or fill every weekend with social calls that leave you depleted. Life, in its later stages, offers the gift of clarity, the clarity to live by your own measures of what's valuable, fulfilling, and worth your time. Independence, self-trust, and a renewed focus on quality relationships become guiding lights. You discover that real friends don't require constant face-to-face contact. They appreciate and love you regardless of how often you swing by. You realize your energy, both physical and emotional, is a precious resource to be allocated wisely. You accept that comfort isn't a luxury. It's vital for sustaining well-being. Ultimately, visiting less often is a choice driven by reflection and wisdom, not by selfishness or isolation. Life is fleeting, and pouring too much energy into obligations that offer little return no longer makes sense. Instead, you channel your strength into deeper bonds, personal growth, and whatever passions spark your joy. The final revelation is that you don't have to justify this shift to anyone. Living authentically means honoring the quiet voice inside that says, "I need peace, and I deserve it." If these 8 reasons resonate with you, know that you're not alone. It's a universal experience to crave fewer, more meaningful visits as the years go by. Some will understand, some won't. But as long as you live true to yourself, you'll find contentment in the path you choose. May you embrace the freedom to visit deliberately, and in doing so, rediscover the warmth and sincerity that make life truly worth living.